we're going to move along with Premiere Pro, and the next lesson we're going to be learning a lot of new things here. Some things are refreshers, some things are new in this lesson, but first our objectives. We're going to learn some new functions within the project panel, the source monitor, and the timeline. We're going to learn how to navigate around Premiere Pro a little more easily and start customizing, moving things around, resizing things just so you can use it a little better. And we're going to get a refresher on creating text. And I'm going to show you a couple of new options with creating text. So we want to begin first in the timeline. We have our videos here. We've imported our riverboat clip, our Tennessee waterfall clip, and our clip of the Batman building. So we've got all those things in here. Now with the project panel, a couple things that I want to show you. All right, I'm going to show you how to create a bin so that maybe we want to separate these three clips. Maybe we're going to add some other things in here, and we just want to add a bin so that we kind of can get things a little bit more organized. So to create a bin, a couple of easy ways to do it. You can either do Command B, and that creates a bin, and basically it's just a folder. So maybe we'll call it Tennessee B-roll. Another way to create a bin is just to go down here in the project panel, go down to the bottom right-hand corner. There's a little white file folder icon. Just click on that. That will also create a bin. Maybe that one we're going to call music. So then we can just simply drag these items into that bin. Now, it could be that it's a little hard to kind of see everything. Maybe we have too many things in here. We can do a couple things. We can either kind of hover our cursor in between the windows and where it kind of has the up and down arrows. We can sort of drag a window to be a little bit bigger, or we can just click within that window. We can hit the tilde key, which is the key right beside of the 1 on the number line. It's just to the left of the 1 towards the top of your keyboard. And the tilde key is going to make everything full screen. And we can just simply shift click through here, get everything we want, and drag it right into that B-roll folder. And then if for some reason we didn't want to do that, remember we can do Command Z. All right. We can also, maybe we want to go inside that bin. We can move things around as well. If for some reason, if we had several clips, it might make more sense. But we can just simply click and drag things around. If we want the Batman building first, maybe we want Tennessee waterfall next, and then the riverboat. All we have to do is click and drag things around. And when we drag it around, you'll kind of see a little gray bar open up, and we can just drop it wherever that shows up. You can also rename your sequence. So we created our sequence by default because the very first clip that we put in the timeline was called Riverboat. It made our sequence take the name Riverboat. Let's go back to, I'm going to close this out, go back to our project panel. This is our sequence. If we go to list view and we take a look at it here, Riverboat, our sequence icon looks a little bit different from the regular video clips. If it's a video clip, your little icon here in list view, it's going to have kind of a purple film strip block, and it's going to have a little green audio waveform. But the sequence itself is going to sort of look like some clips in your timeline. There's like 3 little clips and a playhead on top of it. And that is showing me that that's the sequence. So if for some reason I get lost, I can't find my sequence or it gets closed out, I just have to go back into the project panel, find it here in the project panel and double click on it, and that'll bring it back up and I'll be able to see it. So let's close it out. So now we don't see our sequences here at all. Where did it go? Didn't delete it. we can just go right back over here into the project panel and click on it, and it just brings it right back up, and there's our 3 clips. We can change the name of it if we wanted to call it maybe Tennessee Travel Promo Project. We could just simply click on the name here in the project panel, and that's going to allow you to type over what was in there before, and now our sequence is called Tennessee Travel Promo. All right, want to go up to the source monitor. We know that in the source monitor we can scrub through everything by clicking and dragging the blue playhead back and forth. But you can also, there's a keyboard shortcut for sort of shuttling back and forth. The J, K, and L keys will do that. So you can hit the J key to shuttle that playhead to the left. The K key will stop that. And if you do L, you'll go back the other way. So you'll go towards the right. So J will shuttle to the left, K will stop the playback, and then L will take it to the right. So the J, K, and L keys. You can also use J, K, and L in your timeline. So that's J going backwards, L goes forwards, K stops it. So J essentially goes backwards, and L goes forward, K stops it. If you hit J or L twice, it'll go twice the speed. So if I want to go backwards at twice the speed, I can hit J twice, and it'll go backwards at twice the speed. If I hit L twice, it'll go forwards twice the speed. If I hit it 3 times, it'll do the same thing. It'll do it at 3 times the speed. So J, K, and L are the keyboard shortcuts to help you shuttle back and forth in really any of the monitors or in the timeline. So in the source monitor, the program monitor, or the timeline. All right, if you've got a clip that you only want, in this case, these clips only have video, but if they had audio with them as well, you could. So we have this from one of our stop motion projects. This has video and audio. If we only wanted the video portion of it, right below the video, there are 2 little icons. One says drag video only. It's a little block that looks like a film strip, and drag audio only, which looks like an audio waveform. So if we wanted only the video, and it contains both, we could just click on the little block for drag video only, and that's only going to drag the video. If I wanted only, let's delete that. If we wanted only the audio with it, we could just click on that audio waveform and drag down only the audio. And just again, in your timeline, the top tracks are going to be for your video, bottom tracks are going to be for your audio. Since this is the audio portion of that clip, if I try to drag it up to the video tracks, it's not going to work. If we want to resize our timeline, what we can do, we have a couple of different options. We only have 3 clips on here right now, but if we had several more, it might be that they were running off the screen and we need to see it a little bit better. At the bottom of the window, there's a little slider, and you can do a couple of things with this slider. You can either just click in the middle of the slider and you can move it along and get to the end of the timeline, or if you want to stretch the timeline or decrease the size of the timeline, you can just click on the little white circles and you can drag it out, and that actually resizes the timeline. So you could make the timeline a little bit smaller so that you can then see all 3 clips. Something else that you can do if it's kind of running off the screen on you, you can just simply select the timeline, hit the backslash key, and that will automatically fit all of the clips on the timeline within the display. So it'll shrink everything down so that you can see all your clips and they'll fit within that window. So that makes it really handy. And again, you can also use the tilde key here. So if you want to make that timeline full screen, you can hit tilde and toggle back and forth between making it full screen and not. Also, within the timeline, if for some reason you want to go to the next edit or the previous edit, you can use your up and down arrows, not left and right, but the up and down arrows to go to either the previous edit if you go up, or to the next edit if you click on the down arrow. So the up arrow goes to the previous edit. Notice as I'm pushing it on the keyboard, it's going to that edit point. So up arrow, previous edit, down arrow, next edit. So all that is within the timeline. All right, I want to talk just briefly about tabs within Premiere Pro. If you look in, especially in the project panel and the source monitor, there are tabs behind the main tab. So right here, we're in the project panel tab itself, but behind it, there's the media browser, a tab called libraries, a tab called info, effects, markers. So different tabs behind it to access different things. In the source monitor, the same thing, effect controls, audio, and metadata. So to access those, you just click on them. In the project panel, you're going to see here at the end, there are two little arrows. And what that means is that there are other tabs that go off the screen here. And so to access them, you can just click on the double arrow and you can just scroll right down to them. So we see all the way through markers, so media browser, library, info, markers, but this history panel is off the screen. If we wanted to access that, and history just kind of shows us all the different moves that we've made, we can just go right down to it and click it. And I can click the double arrow icon again and go right back to the project panel tab as well. So that makes it really easy there. A couple things I want to talk about just real quick as far as resizing things. You can resize all of the windows very easily just by hovering your mouse or your cursor in between any window, and you'll see a little double arrow show up on the screen, and you can drag your windows back and forth. So if for some reason you want the source monitor bigger, you can make it bigger. If you want the program monitor bigger, you can make that bigger. If you want a taller timeline, you can drag that up. You can even sort of line everything up to make sort of a four-way intersection if you want, and then you can it'll do a four-way arrow and you can just drag it all over the place. So whatever kind of suits your fancy, it'll go up and over and all this good stuff. So just kind of however you want to do it. And a reminder, if you made a change, you don't like it, you can just go up to Window, Workspaces, and go down to Reset to Save Layout, and that'll fix it for you. Also, sliders. Once again, in the timeline window, you can just use your sliders to kind of move things around, resize them as needed so you can view it a little bit easier. In the project panel, same thing. The sliders will make the thumbnails a little bit bigger so that you can see them better. So all that will kind of help you out. I want to talk very briefly about the toolbar. Your toolbar is here in between your project panel and your timeline, and it's just kind of this narrow column with different tools in it. You may have it set up like that, so it's kind of a double row of tools. It just kind of depends on exactly how things have been moved around on your particular screen, but in general it'll be this single column. And what I want you to notice is as you hover over them, it will give you what's called a tool tip, and it's just kind of a gray window that pops up with the name of that particular tool. So here we see the selection tool. In parentheses, it will show you the keyboard shortcuts, so selection tool and keyboard shortcut V. But just so you know, it does have tool tips over it as you hover over each one, so it'll show you what it is and how to access it with a keyboard shortcut. And if you notice, some of these tools have little tiny triangles right beside of them. That means there are tools behind them, and you can just do kind of a hard click and out will pop a couple of different options. So one, in this particular case, one is track select forward, one is track select backward. On this one, we have 3 different options. On the pen tool, it gives you a couple of different options, including creating a rectangle and an ellipse. So just once again, you just kind of click on it, sort of a hard click, and hold it down for just an extra half second, and it'll pop out those different options. With text, you can do the regular type tool or the vertical type tool. So that kind of gets us into what we're going to do next, just real quick, and that's talking about titles. We talked about titles last semester, and I want to go over those real quick. We've learned that to create a piece of text, you'll remember it's Command T. So when we press Command and T, you're going to get this nice little text layer on the screen that says New Text Layer. Remember, you can kind of resize it by clicking on the edges, dragging it out, making it a little bit bigger. You can go to the edges and go just a hair further, and it'll give you kind of this rotate tool, so you can do that as well. And then remember to edit the text. We don't want it to say New Text Layer. Maybe we want it to say Tennessee. Just double click in it and then just edit it. Just a reminder, from that point, if you want to change it, we're going to go into the Effect Controls tab, and we can make some changes here. So we're just going to select it here on the screen. Double click it to highlight the whole thing. Over here in the Effect Controls tab, you're going to see that it's highlighted. Right now we don't see any options, but remember there's this disclosure arrow beside of it. We'll turn it down, and it gives us all these different options. So we can change the size of it here. We can change the font style here as well. So that's something called Noteworthy. That one's Plantagenet Cherokee. That one's kind of a script font. And there are just a million different options for text and the different font styles. But you can make some of them. Let's go to one that will allow us to make it bold. Let's see. So this one has several options: light, light oblique, regular, oblique, bold, and bold oblique. So oblique is sort of like italicized for that particular font. And you can change the justification. You can align it various ways. Now, one thing that you will notice when you're aligning it, that sort of appears to be centered, and when we click the center align, it kind of moves it off to the side, and that can be a little bit confusing, but basically it aligns it based on where an anchor point is for that particular piece of text. So don't so much worry about it. The easiest way to really do it, and I'll show you some advanced ways as we move along, but you can just sort of click on it and move it around as needed. And then we'll talk more about the Essential Graphics panel later. Just kind of a reminder that to change the color, we're going to double click it, and then under Appearance, we can change the fill color. Maybe we want it to be orange for UT. We'll change it, and then maybe we want a nice little white stroke around it. Just click side stroke. In this particular case, we'll make it white, which it already is by default. And then we'll go over here to the right and change the stroke width. and you'll see on the screen it's making that a little bit larger. Right now it's at 4 points, and so it makes it stand out on the screen. All right, so that should be pretty familiar, but I do want to show you something really quickly, how to add a little bit more. Instead of just making it like this, we're going to delete this real quick, and a couple of options. You can go up to, instead of just Command T, you can go up to Graphics, New Layer, and you have the option of a couple of things: regular text or vertical text. You can make a rectangle or square, or you can make a circle. So let me show you vertical text first. That's just going to be kind of up and down. And again, we can go back to our selection tool, move this around. Maybe we'll make it say Tennessee again. And then it's just going to put our letters up and down. So maybe I don't love that, so I'm just going to delete it. But now I'm going to show you how to create text with sort of a circle behind it. So what we're going to do first, we're just going to go up to that graphics option at the top, go down to New Layer, and we're going to go down to Ellipse. And maybe for this one, we're going to make it a black circle with a white stroke. So we're going to have it selected in the timeline. We're going to find that shape that we just created here in our Effect Controls window, turn down the disclosure arrow. I'm going to check the fill button here. We're going to change it to black. Change the stroke button or option to white. And then I'm going to increase the size of this. So under your transform properties, we can just kind of scale it up. And now I'm going to make it say Tennessee in the middle of it. We could create a whole separate graphic, but I actually want it all to be on the same graphic. So just highlight that same graphic. And from here, we can actually do Command T, or we could go to Graphics, New Layer, Text, and it's going to add our text. Because the last thing that we created had this style, it's going to pop it back up again with the orange fill and the white stroke. And so we'll just keep that for now and make it say Tennessee. But that's too small, so we're just going to select it. We're going to go back to, we're going to close out the shape because we don't want to change the shape anymore. So we'll just close out that. Go to the disclosure triangle with the text, and in parentheses it says Tennessee. And over here, we'll change the size of it, and then we'll go back to our selection tool, just move it back, kind of put it in there and center it. So that's a personal preference thing. Maybe we don't like it quite so plain. Maybe we want just a slightly different font. Let's go back in here. Maybe we kind of like that. So that way we've got it saying Tennessee. We could also, if we wanted to see the video under it, we could change the opacity of it, go under here under the transform properties, and we could make it, I'm gonna do it for the shape. Let's see. Let's go back to our shape, go to opacity, and bring it down a little bit. And then we can kind of see the video under it. And if we wanted to create a box or a square, we could just simply go up to Graphics, New Layer, Rectangle, and under that shape, we can scale it up a little bit. And once again, we could add the text. So we could just make sure, select it, go to Graphics, New Layer, Text, and then we'll have it. That's a little bit bigger than the box, so we can just kind of scale it back down. I'm just going to kind of eye it and drag it around. And if we wanted that to say Tennessee, just double click it, overwrite it. That's a little too small, so we'll go under the text, just click on the disclosure arrow and make the text, select it, highlight it, and drag the slider to make it just a little bit bigger. And now I'll just center it up just a little bit. And once again, we could also change the opacity on it to make it see-through. So we could go back into the shape, the transform properties, and bring it back down. And there you go. All right. So what we've done today, we've taken a look at a little bit of organization and moving things around, customizing things for the project panel, the source monitor, the timeline. We've gone through some general stuff like the tabs and the double arrows to access more tabs, resizing windows, using the sliders, using the tilde key to once again toggle back and forth between full screen and not being full screen. We talked a little bit about the toolbar and hovering over the different tools to see the gray tip tools to see, or tooltips to see what that particular tool is. And we learned just a little bit more about adding text, customizing that text, and creating text that has circles and squares with it, in addition to changing the colors. So that's today's lesson. So go in to your project that you've been working on, create this graphic that says Tennessee. You can either create it with a square or a circle, but just make sure that it does have a fill color and make sure that it has your text in there. It should say Tennessee, and add that graphic. And then once you do that, I'll come around and check your work and check you off.